This is Stocks to Watch, your chance to hear directly from the top executives of publicly listed companies. I'm your host, Michelle Martin. Welcome, everyone. Today on the show, we're focusing on Canadian North Resources. They're a company focused on resource exploration and development. They recently announced the completion of a diamond drilling project on their 100% owned Ferguson Lake Project over in Canada. What are the near-term opportunities and the longer-term potential that Canadian North Resources brings to the investment community? Canadian North Resources trades in Toronto under the ticker CNRI on the TSXV Venture Exchange, over the counter in the US as CNRSF, and in Frankfurt as EO0. Joining me today is Sophy Cesar, Head of Corporate Development from Canadian North Resources.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
There are so many exploration companies out there for potential investors to pass through. What would you say allows Canadian North Resources to stand out from the competition?
Wow, that's a great question, Michelle. So I think in terms of Canadian North, what is really, I think the point that stands out the most for us is everything that we've been able to accomplish since going public. And I know I talk about it often, but we only went public in April of 2022, and we were able to put out an updated 43-101. We were able to expand our land package. We were able to do 2 aggressive drill programs, of over 39,000 meters of drilling in 2 years. And that's not a small feat when you're talking about the Canadian North and Nunavut, where it's cold, the conditions are not always ideal. So we've been really able to advance the project really far. And I think that that's really what sets us apart for investors.
What do you think investors should be looking at when deciding which exploration companies to possibly park their cash in?
So this isn't by no means financial advice. I want to caveat this answer by saying that. But I believe that when you're looking for a project to invest in, you want to really look at the financial health of the company. So I think that's a great place to start. And, companies can do that by reading through investors can do that by reading through the financials, the MD&A. You also want to make sure that the company is able to raise money and has enough money in the bank to take them forward, whether it be through the general administration of operations, but as well as drilling. So I think that also for us, we just prior to going public, but since the creation of CNRI, we've been able to raise $40 million since, I would say, in the last 2 years. So that's a significant amount of money. So I think that's important. You want to look at the resource itself, the potential blue sky there. So for example, for us, on top of all the drilling that we're currently doing, we have 24 million tons of indicated, but we also have a significant amount of inferred, the 40 million tons. And with all this further drilling, we're hoping to take that inferred and bring it into indicated. So you want to look at the overall mass and size of the resource that you're dealing with, as well as obviously the grades. But those things, I think, are where you want to start, as well as, is it a mineral that you see, for example, for ours, we're talking about clean metals. So copper, cobalt, nickel, the PGMs, we know that there's going to be a great demand for that in the future, leading forward with carbon neutrality and electric vehicles. So that's a good place to start to do your research and really look at how that fits in with obviously your risk factors, but also, is this a great sector for me to be investing in right now? Am I coming in on the cusp of growth?
Are you investing in the future, so to speak? That's a great point. Speaking of the future, how important is it to look back at historical exploration records and assets location when you are figuring out sites to explore in terms of determination of potential? And can you talk specifically about the Ferguson Lake property in this area?
Of course. So I think historical exploration is important for conducting a due diligence on a project. Mm-hmm. For example, from our perspective, Canadian North's perspective, when looking to find a project to acquire and to build out. All of that historical data can offer insights on, for example, the geological characteristics of the area, the mineralization patterns, the ore grades, what type of minerals are present. And all of that accumulates into a historical 43101 mineral resource. And that provides valuable data as well for estimating the size and quality of the mineral resource. I mean, we were just talking about, how large scale this resource could be. So all of that historical data is important for laying the groundwork. Some of it you can use. And I think that's where Ferguson Lake comes in. Some of it you can't, but even the one that you can't use, it provides kind of a groundwork or just creates a map to where you could go. For Ferguson Lake specifically is a perfect example. So this project's been explored since the 1950s. And so we were fortunate enough to acquire it from Starfield Resources, who had drilled close to 160,000 meters. And because we are up north and in Nunavut, all of this core, about 90% of it was impeccably preserved. So that, along with their historical 43101 and their PEA, allowed us to move quickly in updating our own 43101 resource within months of going public. So we were able to use that core to update that. So that's a great example of looking at the historical footprint of a project and being able to make strategic decisions, allowing us to move that project forward quickly.
Really interesting. Talk to us about the Ferguson Lake Project. We know that exploration efforts progress through several phases. Can you tell us about the stage of development that the Ferguson Lake Project currently sits in?
Yeah, so obviously mining or an exploration project, a mining project has a lot of different phases. We are definitely in the exploration phase. We're not a green site exploration phase in the term that there's been previous exploration done. So I would say we're an advanced exploration project. Everybody knows I love to talk about our infrastructure. There's a huge infrastructure already built there. There's been $190 million invested in infrastructure, exploration, and metallurgy. So I think that makes us an advanced exploration project, but we're not in any way at the development phase, of mining the project. That's further down the line. Right now, we are probably considering further drilling, and then that moves on into a PA, a pre-feasibility, and then there would be some more work done before it becomes close to being a mine.
Well, beyond the development stage that a project is at, what are some other factors investors should be thinking about when they're evaluating an exploration project, do you think?
So in addition to what I mentioned earlier, I think that there's a lot of, I guess you could call them essential success factors for evaluating exploration projects. So I would say, look at the expertise of your team, assess your exploration team. Are they a capable, experienced team with a track record of successful exploration that can enhance and significantly bring the project forward? Like, for example, I look at Ferguson Lake. So our CEO, Dr. Yang, and our VP of exploration, Dr. Trevor Boyd, they both have experience working with majors. So what that allows us to do from a junior exploration company, even though we're further down the line, it allows us to strategically think about what are majors looking for. So our team knows, they've worked inside the majors. They know what the majors are looking for when either making a strategic investment or acquiring a project. So that allows us to make decisions based on the knowledge and expertise of our technical team and our management team. And I also think then scalability of the project is another great thing to look at. So a scalable project has the potential for expansion and increased production and exploration of the resource. So that provides long-term value for investors. So I think those are two additional points that investors could be looking at.
And speaking of scalability, can you talk a little about the Ferguson Lake property and sort of the runway? What's next in terms of upcoming steps?
Of course. So as everyone knows, we did this huge drill program this year. So we're going to be expecting to see those results coming out shortly, the balance of the assay results. And we also announced that we engaged SRK to do the update of our 43101. So we're expecting that in Q1 of 2024. And then based on those results, we are going to probably move into another drill program for 2024 to, like I mentioned, further build up that resource. So moving forward, when we start looking at strategic partnerships, we're going to have scaled up the potential for the long-term production of this project.
Exciting. All right. Before we conclude, Sophie, and let you go, do you have any sort of final takeaways, insights for our investor audience? What do we need to know about Canadian North Resources?
So I think that I'd like your investors to know that we're doing something in a difficult market that other companies aren't able to do, which is raise money, do aggressive drill programs, and continuing checking off our milestones. I think that that's really, really important when looking at another mining company, when looking at investing at a mining company. Are they doing what they said they are going to do? And are they doing it in the timeline that they said? So that's something that we take very, very into consideration very strongly. We don't want to overpromise. So we really adhere to our timelines, and we want to deliver to our investors what we said we were going to deliver. So for us, it's really expanding that project, making it, I hesitate on saying a world-class project, but we want to make it one of the largest non-developed copper nickel PGM project in North America. So that's really our goal.
Exciting. It sounds like 2024 is set to be an exciting year. Would you say, Sophie, for Canadian North Resources?
I would. I'd say it's been 2 exciting years past, but it's looking fantastic for the future as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining us today here on Stocks to Watch. She's Sophy Cesar, Head of Corporate Development from Canadian North Resources. Have a great day ahead, Sophie.
Thank you, Michelle. You too.